Welcome back to part 2 of the interview with Gregg Korrol. We will be discussing the advantages and disadvantages of self-publishing versus getting a professional publisher. What are the life lessons in The Gifted Storyteller? And he's going to talk about how his dad invented the revolutionary product that eliminates women's menstrual cramps.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performers Podcast with your host, Thor Conklin. Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. If you go to self-publishing, you're responsible for, obviously, printing all the books, distribution, everything else. Most people put them out on Amazon. But by getting a publisher, how does that change the game?
Well, it's really like turning it over. In other words, you maintain or at least in my case, I maintain the copyright, but they kind of own the book. So in other words, they put together the cover. They hired an editor to go through it, which I was happy to hear that most of my edits that I needed at that point, which I knew about, were really just adjusting tense, past and present tense, and keeping things a little more steady because I jumped back and forth. Content-wise, they aside from one question, there was no edits on content, which was pretty cool. So the thing with having a publisher in this case really was that you're kind of creating a team. You're kind of having a group of people who are working on a project at helping people. And they, I'd pass them over the transcript, if you will, and they'd bounce it back with the edits, and then I would go through those. And then it was a matter of just slight tweakings, like how do you like this type print? Obviously, they worked on the cover, which I thought they did a phenomenal job on. And that's it. And then you just get basically, whereas I guess if you self-publish, whatever people buy, you get that percentage. I get a percentage of whatever they get, the publisher gets.
Nice. And then they're going to obviously promote the book as well.
Yeah, they have promotional avenues, if you will. And then what they do is they send me lots of emails of podcasters or interviews or other people that I can get in touch with. And that's what's led me to the first couple of interviews and a few more that I actually have set up.
So you talked about some of the life lessons that you learned and you put them in the book. Give us a preview. What are some of the lessons?
After I've reread the book a few times, I realize, and also my wife has told me this, there's just so much in there. She's read it about 3 or 4 times and also heard the audio pieces that I've already recorded. So, she says the more you hear it, the more you're getting out of it, the more understanding there is. So I'm actually starting to work on a lessons book, like to unpack some of the lessons that are there, because there's literally about 30 different major points that people can learn from. So obviously the most major piece has to do with the storyteller concept, that you have this voice in your head and that it's guiding your life, and there's ways of using that voice to give much more meaning and opportunity to your life. So that's the major part of the story that's threaded throughout and the main part. Then there's a lot of other little lessons that are integrated in terms of how to be present, how to be more aware of what's around you. And I talk a lot about, actually I don't talk a lot about it in the book, but it'll be part of a future book, where it really talks about gifts and signs that kind of show up in your life when you're kind of aware of where you are, of the here and now, and you're really paying attention to what people are saying and really listening, as opposed to listening to the way you're going to respond to them, but listening to what they're actually saying, hearing people and realizing that there's lessons all around you, that there's opportunities to learn everywhere in every moment with every situation. And so I refer to that as just kind of gifts that the universe is giving to you. There's that old saying that, the past is the past, the future is the future, but the present is a gift. And that's why it's called the present. So it touches upon that concept, but I'll go into more of that, in a future.
So there's at least one more book in you.
2 actually that I have kind of in my head at this point.
Nice. Is this something that you think that's going to kind of build an obsession and you're going to, pump out a book every couple of years?
I would love to.
Nice.
I actually would. I mean, there's writing is something I've always really enjoyed doing. I know it's you've voiced that you don't necessarily like writing, but I
love sharing, just not the writing piece.
And it's all well and good. It's just a different avenue. It's interesting though, because I can talk and have a conversation, etc. But when I write, my voice comes out a little differently. I don't know if that's just part of using my body and actually physically writing, but I express things differently in writing. I talk about communication in the book and how it's so important to use words and create feelings in people by using certain language and certain words that are going to help people feel a certain way, and that you can also speak to people in a way that they understand, because the reality is, well, we're all using, like, you and I could say something is great, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the way you're meaning great is the same way I'm meaning great. So really understanding that to communicate with people around you, you have to really get to know them and understand their language and their way of speaking so that you can better reach them.
Yeah. You know, it's like criticism. I don't mind criticism. Criticism to me doesn't have a negative connotation. It's like if you've got some thoughts and you've got some criticism about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, bring it on. A lot of people are like, oh, no, I don't like criticism. It's like that. That's where I get some insights. So it's like, bring it on. Come on. I'm a big boy.
It's feedback. It's also, feedback. So it's really what people associate with criticism. In other words, and maybe how they were criticized in their life, if you will. Because if you look at a lot of successful people or people who've, quote unquote, really made it in this world, they embrace failure. They embrace the criticism. They embrace those opportunities to learn, because that's really all it is. But going back to the storytelling concept of the gifted storyteller, your mind spins a story around what something means to you, which is why some people have that experience where they go, oh no, you're going to criticize me or you're going to give me certain feedback. Whereas other people, like you just said, are like, bring it on. I'm a big boy. I want to learn from this. I'm curious to hear your perspective. The interesting thing about it is sometimes, and I write about this in the book too, another piece, you encounter these people in your life who are very negative or very pushy or whatever else, but there's gifts there too, because somebody who's kind of pushing your buttons and pushing on your point of view or pushing on your work, so to speak, you have to build yourself up to be even stronger, to really flex that muscle and work harder at explaining what it is you're trying to convey or what you're trying to message. So even those people who come at you in a negative way are actually offering you an opportunity to be better and stronger in your message.
Absolutely. You don't gain muscle by going to the shopping center. You gain it by going and lifting weights over and over and over again. The heavier they get, the more you build. And what do we really learn from our successes? In my past, not a ton. And you start to get lulled into this sense of false security of, hey, doesn't matter, how much time I spend prepping on this thing. I always make it happen. It always works out. It's our failures that we really learn our best lessons from and where we grow.
It's absolutely true.
Yeah,
absolutely true. Because when it's like that experience of, like, you can use a wedding as an analogy where somebody spends a year planning something, they have that one day, and then like that, it's over. And a lot of people have that anticlimactic feeling.
Yeah. Because
they were so consumed by thinking that end point is the celebration or is the be all end all, but it was really all the enjoyment they had on that journey that flexes that muscle and makes you who you are.
In our private Facebook group, Peak Performance Nation, on Fridays we have Failure Fridays, and it's share your failures for the week. It's like, okay, look, how'd I mess up? What happened? And then what did I learn from it? And I want to learn from your failures. And just because you fail, that doesn't mean that you're a failure. Don't associate your behavior or your outcomes with your identity. They're two different things.
Well, the reality is the people who have failed the most in this life are the people who are also the most successful.
Yes.
They're very gifted failures, if you will. They just found the one edge that kind of made a difference for them. But it wasn't, failure just means you tried something. That's the reality. It may not have worked the way you wanted it to, but you tried, which is so much further along than the person who's been sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a guest on the other day, and he said, when one door closes, I don't go look for another door. I just build one. I was like, nice. I love that analogy. And I said, well, now I'm thinking about a house. When the door closes, well, we can build one, and we could also go around back and see if there's a back door. And then there might be a chimney, and there might even be a window that's open. And if not, we could build a window. So it's Yeah, just keep going. It doesn't matter what door closes, just keep working.
And the reality is with that, it's all your perspective. It's all your story about quote unquote failure.
Yeah.
In other words, what is failure? Failure just means something didn't work the way you expected it. And that's something else I kind of talk about is this degree between expectation and reality. In other words, anytime people are generally sad or upset or angry, it's because there was an expectation created and reality did not necessarily match that expectation. How big that gap is could also be part of what's determining how you're feeling, but that's all it is. It's a story you created of what you thought should, would, could happen, but it didn't.
Yeah. And I believe that my life is guided. And I always love the phrase, if you want to make God laugh, just tell her your plans. Yes. And when things don't work out the way I want them to, I always get curious, well, maybe I'm just thinking from a mortal human. And maybe there's a bigger plan here, and this door's shut in order to keep me on the right track.
Interesting. And that's again, you asked earlier about lessons in the book, and that's another lesson that's discussed in the book, is this concept that where Jeannie kind of asks Michael regarding her father, can you really understand forever? If you think about it, everything in our experience, all our language, all our actions, everything is based on the beginning and an end. We don't really understand this concept of infinity, that something can go on and on and on and on. We have a very limited scope that's based on the reality in which we live in.
Let's switch gears here for a moment. And I know you've been helping your father or father-in-law with a new product. Father with a new product. Tell us a little bit about the product and some of the lessons that you learned in bringing this to market.
So it's an interesting story because my father was a pharmacist, and at some point he decided also, well, what else do I want to do with my life? And he decided to go back to school, and he became an acupuncturist, acupuncture, acupressure, etc. So one of the things that he really got into it is, there's, for those who don't understand acupuncture, basically there's all these points all across your body, and there are lines called meridians. And basically when you're not feeling well, it's a break, if you will, in one of these channels of energy. So an acupuncturist goes and basically reconnects those two channels so that energy can flow properly through you. So one of the things, as he did treated many people, he also realized that women suffer every single month from menstrual cramps. So the degree of which women would suffer, of course, would vary, but to him, it was something like another problem that can be solved. If your body theoretically can solve everything, why can't it solve this? So he found a combination of points based on his studies, using 2 or 3 different points that when pressed precisely, eliminate menstrual cramp pain in under 5 minutes. So as the story went, he was at a hospital. He was working at the hospital. He was at the hospital one day getting lunch, and one of the nurses was literally doubled over. She was literally hunched over, and he had asked her, "Are you okay? What's going on?" And I guess she had, knew him enough to say what was going on. And he just looked at her. He's like, "I could take care of that." So he pushed the 2 to 3 spots on her leg. Believe it or not, is where the spot is. The area is, and within literally 2 to 3 minutes, she said she went from like a level 9 pain straight down to a 0. She was floored. She could not believe that something she's dealt with every single month for her entire, since she was a teenager and her adult life, was just removed without a pill, without a needle, without any electric stimulation or whatever the case is, just by simply pushing on 2 to 3 points. So she had made a comment to him like, I can't have you follow me around every month. You have to come up with something so I can do this without you here. So sure enough, he did. He created a band, which we now call Yugen, Yoogen, which actually comes from the Japanese word, which is Yugen means a feeling there's no words for, just like a heavenly feeling, which of course when you're out of pain, you feel. So he created this band called Yugen, which you can literally put on your leg in a certain spot, and within 3 to 5 minutes, cramps are gone. And some people go down from a level 9 or 10 to something that's manageable, a 2 or a 3. Some people go down to no pain at all. And it's something you wear on your leg for roughly 3 to 5 minutes. You take it off, you wrap it up, you put it back in your purse, if you will. And a couple of hours later, not even a couple hours. I mean, longer than that. It could be, that evening or even the next day. You may need to use it again once more. But it seems the women that I've spoken to and the friends that have used it and the clients he's worked with, it seems to be something they just wear maybe twice during their cycle, and they're good to go. And that's the thing, is that it's a very interesting concept because it's a game changer. It's something that is very opposite of what people have been told their entire lives, that you have to take certain medicine to relieve your pain, or it's just something you have to suffer or deal with. And the reality is it's not. And, I'm proud of my dad. He created something that is going to literally change the lives of women everywhere. The hard part is getting it out there. In other words, when you've been living a certain mindset and a certain habit for, 10, 20, 30 years, and even if you're a teenager who's first experiencing cramps, and this is what everybody's telling you, how do you change the mindset? Because people are scared. Nobody wants to be in pain. So they're very quick to jump on pills or whatever else. But women, again, it ranges. Some people suffer so much that they actually have to take days off of work. And that was something that nurse, or one of the nurses that he had spoken to, literally had to do every month. She had to take that first day off of her cycle. And once she got a hold of the Jugendband, she never had to do that again. And
how is he marketing the product?
So right now he's working with somebody on developing a social media campaign. So it's all over Instagram. It's Jugend_band. And he has a Facebook page, or a website rather. So it's Jugend.com, Yoogen.com. And you can literally go see everything from testimonials to obviously buying the product itself. There's an instructional video to explain how to put it on, because the reality is it's precision. In other words, you need to hit the exact spots. So he designed a plate that would wrap around your leg in such a way that you're more than likely going to hit that spot. But everybody's different. Everybody, some people's calves, it's on your calf, are bigger, some are smaller, some people are taller, some people are shorter. So there's always a little room of flexibility in where that spot is. But the video kind of guides you as to how to find it in the most simplest way.
Fascinating. Finding a problem, solving it, and then coming out with a product. Brilliant.
Yeah. And he's been working on it for 10 years before he got it to the point where he was happy with it. So, the joke is when this eventually hits and people realize how quickly this eliminates menstrual cramp pain, it's going to be one of those quote-unquote overnight successes that took 10 to 12 years to happen.
They all do, don't they?
They all do.
Yeah, people see the overnight, but they don't see the 10 years beforehand. Well, that's great. I've seen the product work. It's an amazing invention, and very best to you and your dad in that venture.
Thank you so much.
So tell us a little bit about how we can order the book, how the audience can get a hold of you, and if they have any questions.
So there's various ways. There's my website, which is thegiftedstoryteller.com. On the website, you'll see everything from blog entries to I'm also working on a podcast series that'll be up there eventually, in the not too distant future.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You can read testimonials and hear other stories of people who've pre-read the book, as well as order the book, which is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Million, and a whole host of other, online bookstores around the world. Hoping it'll be physically in bookstores, but again, it has yet to come out, so I haven't walked into a bookstore yet and seen it. But I do know it's available globally. I have friends who live in Europe, and they've already pre-ordered it and said that they see it on their end. So that's basically how you can get a hold of the book at any of those major sites. I also have a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/thegiftedstoryteller, and I probably update that mostly. In other words, that's an every day or every other day at the most little excerpt from the book or quote from the book or something to kind of give you a little uplift, if you will. So feel free to follow and like that page, facebook.com/thegiftedstoryteller. And the only one that's slightly different is Twitter, which is @thegifted_story, because they'd only let you have so many characters in the name. So again, that's @thegifted_story on Twitter.
That's awesome. Gregg, I really appreciate you sharing your story today, and congratulations on the book. I look forward to getting my copy and reading it, and having it back on when you write your next book.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Great job. Every peak performer that has ever lived or will live does one thing extremely well. They know how to take their ideas and execute on them. Ideas and knowledge are not power, but the ability to execute on them, that is real power. If you consider yourself a peak performer and really want to take your game to the next level and truly master the science of execution, I would like to send you some information about our upcoming event, Business Execution Summit. Simply take your phone and text the word BE Summit, one word, to 41411. And I'll send you some additional information on how to master the most important skill you will ever acquire for your life or your business. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is, send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.